Former ABC reporter Terry Moran is doubling down on his strong critique of White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. The network decided not to renew Moran's contract amid controversy after he tweeted that Miller was, quote, richly endowed with the capacity for hatred and is, quote, a world-class hater.
Moran is now responding to a Resurfaced clip of a 17-year-old Miller joking about torture. Vice News published this video back in 2017. Referencing the Iraq War, Miller says in the clip that the goal of any military conflict is for as many people as possible to survive.
Miller then says that when it comes to Saddam Hussein and his henchmen, the US shouldn't kill them but cut off their fingers. Here he is explaining his rationale.
We respect life. Therefore, torture is the way to go. Because tortured people can live. Torture is a celebration of life and human dignity.
Former Obama speechwriter Jon Favreau responded to the clip on X, writing, Stephen Miller has been a sociopath for most of his life. Wild that ABC fired Terry Moran for simply stating that this person is a world-class hater. Moran then responded in turn to Favreau and wrote, I wrote it because it's true.
Now, at the time that Vice published that video in 2017, then White House press secretary told the outlet, this was Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she said, this is clearly a sketch comedy routine performed by teenagers for teenagers as part of a video yearbook. This teenage skit does not reflect any policy position, past or present, held by Stephen Miller. It's another comical overreach by the media.
I mean, there's a lot of different strands to this. First of all, the video itself, I assume, is kind of a joke. It's a pretty sort of bad taste joke, but it's not clear to me, is Miller simply just is he being challenged by his friends to defend the most ludicrous thing possible? And it's like, here, defend torture, and off he goes.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
So I don't think that is particularly, I don't, you know, of the sins I would level against Stephen Miller, that wouldn't really make the list. Now, I do think he's a rather dark figure in various ways. He has a view of presidential power that I would imagine even a libertarian like yourself would have some fairly serious problems with, because he seems to think that if you win a presidential election, you can literally do anything. And he is very derisive about the power of the courts, very derisive of the power of Congress, and so on and so forth. In the first Trump term, he was one of the main drivers behind the Muslim ban, behind the family separations policy. So there's all sorts of valid reasons to dislike Stephen Miller. And then there's, of course, the separate issue of Terry Moran, who has now become a kind of commentator or a pundit, and I think is therefore, because he's independent now, at liberty to say what he really thinks. Whether you should have said what he said while you're an ABC News purportedly straight news reporter, I tend to think the answer to that is no, but he can say whatever he likes now.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. I defended Terry Moran to some degree when he was fired. Now, while acknowledging he was a reporter and maybe that was too much weighing in of your personal opinion, I find this personal opinion, not personal opinion, straight news opinion kind of standards for mainstream media people now to be totally confused and pointless and should actually kind of just be discarded. So it was kind of silly. I also didn't think it was the most out there opinion to express, or that Stephen Miller is like thin-skinned. He's a combatant. He says edgy things too. A lot of his policies are not my policies, as you pointed out, and I think he has pushed the Trump administration into deportation priorities that are not good policy or politics. He was the one screaming at ICE officials that they had to find more regular, not criminals, but other people to arrest. That is not what I want to do. Sure. All that said, a out of context video of a 17-year-old saying edgy things, and to say that is somehow proves you were right about Stephen Miller is I think just stupid, and I thought we were mostly past that. 17, I checked, Stephen Miller's 3 years older than me. If you had recorded me in the immediate wake of 9/11 when I was in the 8th grade, I would have been swept up in the same patriotic fervor as most of the country and all of our policymakers, and certainly adult teenage boys. we don't let them vote because you don't know anything at that age.
Well, and they have a propensity to say shocking.
Yeah, and I always say this, and some people go, well, I never, when I was a kid, said anything offensive or crass or crude. And I'm like, oh, really? If you had a camera follow you your whole life, the way kids do now with smartphones, you might be surprised at what you said. You would not remember. It was so long ago. No. And it wouldn't be indicative of your character. It would be indicative of the fact that you were at some point a freaking 14-year-old.
Right.
So I think we should practice broad forgiveness of gross or offensive things people have said up through high school. And then, and then at college I think it's a different story then. But through high school, I think it's just good sense to be like, you know what, you're still working things out. Your brain is still developing. You're still, you're still a developing mind, and I don't know that this indicates anything. And also, we don't know the surrounding context. You're right. Maybe they said, play a stereotypical conservative defense of torture, go.
Right.
I'm not, you have no idea.
No. To your point about social media and all of that, as someone who is older than both you and Stephen Miller, I have to say that one of the opinions that seems to unite almost everyone of my generation is gratitude for having grown up in a pre-social media age. Because that gave, it's not even exactly gave more freedom because we didn't know what was to come. It just means that you can't be held accountable for dumb things you said when you were 16 or 17 or 18. And I think that's generally advantageous to everybody. Now, I agree with you as well that we should be more forgiving of what people say at that age. There was, I won't go into the details now, but there was a female journalist who rose to some prominence, and then old comments she had made of I think pertaining to Asian people, if I recall correctly, when she was very, very young, were sort of dug up and it became this mini scandal.
Yeah, that happens over and over again. I think maybe we're past a little bit of that time period, but it was relentless from like 2014-ish through the end of the decade. The whole, it felt like every time someone was getting any kind of attention, either a famous person getting attention or someone who was not famous but had some moment of triumph, and then going back and looking for tweets they said that were racist or anti-woman or anti-gay or just offensive or just whatever, divorced of all context from their adolescence. And just that was like, journalists were loving doing that. And then you could do that to the journalists too. I love that phase where like, well, what did you tweet when you were a young person? Let's find something.
Get caught in that way.
The cancel culture circular firing squad is just deeply unhealthy. I've been so against that. And new technology forces us to adopt new norms. So I'm not a Luddite at all. We can't make smartphones go away and social media go away, even if we wanted to. It's not happening. So that just behooves us to adapt new practices. And I think the forgiveness is a healthy practice because it was journalists propelling a lot of this. They felt encouraged to go back and look for this stuff. Just don't do that. And, so I don't think it was good form of Favreau and Terry Moran to be like, oh, look, see, we're right about him because of this. You can point to all the things he's doing now that you don't like. I even don't like some of them.
Well, that's what I was going to say. All the issues of social media and what he said as a 17-year-old aside, I think there are many and abundant and serious reasons to dislike Stephen Miller. And so I don't want to seem like I'm weighing in on his defense. I think he's a very dark figure in American politics. But what he said on the school bus when he was 17 isn't part of that picture, in my opinion.
And people who presided over the actual torture policies or the waterboarding policies of the Bush administration have been rehabilitated as commentators on CNN and MSNBC because they hate Trump. So it's kind of weird who gets forgiven for this. But you said something about it when you were a 17-year-old. That's beyond the pale.
I know. There's a noted Washington Post columnist who was a big defender of waterboarding in full adulthood from a very prominent perch in the commentariat.
Yeah, I think that should be more objectionable than what you said on the bus at 17. Former New York governor, next up, Andrew Cuomo, threatening to leave the Big Apple if Zohran Mamdani wins. Oh no, not that. Stay tuned.